All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. First of all, let me point out a couple things that are different about this webinar. For one thing, you can see me. They added HD faces to go to webinar. So on some of the webinars, I'm going to start sharing my webcam so that you can see a little bit more of facial expressions, nonverbal communication, things like that when we're going through a pitch or objections and rebuttals, things like that. So now let me talk to you about this webinar because our schedule is a little bit different on this webinar. Here's what we're going to do. We are going to get started with our core values, of course, as always. Then we're going to transition over to a short tip from the field from Jonathan Ruiz. So I want to talk about what are the main things that are keeping you from getting past that, just that very initial point of contact, right at the beginning, getting past that, maybe getting the processing statement, objections that you're facing in those areas. So you have to bear with me. My voice is not real good today. I've been a little bit sick this week, but I think we'll be able to get through the webinar fine, and I'm really excited about it. I want it to be really interactive, so if you have any questions or any input, feel free to type them out in the question box over to the right-hand side of your screen. So, all right, let's go ahead and get started. We will start out with our core values, as we always do. Our first core value is always learning, and I've got two tips for you today in this area of always learning. Number one, no matter how long you've been selling, keep in mind that just one little tip, one new opening idea can dramatically increase your income. Don't ever get to the point in your sales career where you feel like I've learned it all. I know everything I need to know. Don't ever get to that point. That's not a place where you want to be at. What you really want is you want to have an attitude of always learning. You're always wanting to learn some new things. Let me give you a great book for some of you that might not have looked at this yet because it's a little bit of an older book. It's called How to Master the Art of Selling by Tom Hopkins. You can get this on Amazon in paperback for I think like $5. So it's a great deal. Now there's a specific section in there called Leading with Questions that's just excellent, and we're going to talk about some of those questions and how to lead with questions today in our workbook. But I wanted to share that quick tip with you if you're looking for a good sales book to read. Now the first the first half of that book or first quarter of it, is I don't really like it that much. It's all the rah sales stuff. But he does get into some really, really good sales techniques. He has some really strange closing techniques, but I really, really like his Leading with Questions chapter. So take a look at that. That will help you out a lot. Secondly, always living. Take control of your prospecting time. Take control of your prospecting time and make yourself accountable. Let me share a quick tip with you, something that I've personally done. I have a local agent that I'm working with right now. We're building a new local business in a city that's about a half hour from my office. And one of the things I found that's been really effective for me is that I got a young man who is a junior in high school right now. And he wants to learn the business. He wants to do some calling for me and generate some appointments and things like that. And I've had him meeting me 3 days a week. Now I don't have time to prospect like I used to. I can't get out there for 8 hours a day or anything. But we've been going out 3 days a week for about 2 hours a day. I've been out prospecting. And the thing about that is it really helps if you have somebody that holds you accountable. One of the great things about working with sub-agents and having your own team is that it helps you to be accountable to somebody else. There's a sub-agent I'm working with, and I also have this young man from high school I'm working with. And so they kind of hold me accountable to get out there and do my prospecting. So I would really recommend that you try to find somebody to hold you accountable, whether it's your spouse and giving her a copy of your schedule. The way I have mine set up, I have a Google Calendar, and my wife Christina, she actually has my schedule in her phone. So anytime she wants, she can pull up my phone and see my schedule. So if I'm sitting on the couch and she looks at my schedule and it says prospecting, I've told her that, I've asked her to help me in that area and to hold me accountable. So if she sees that, she can kind of call me out and say, hey, your schedule says you're supposed to be out prospecting right now. What are you doing? And so she helps me with that. But don't get to the point where you just feel like, well, I'm amazing. I'm going to do anything I set my mind to do. Yeah, okay, that's great. But have somebody hold you accountable. I've done things like I've had at times where I've texted somebody that I really respect, like my pastor or a counselor, and say, "Hey, I'm going to text you when I get to my first business, tomorrow," and things like that, just to help you get going. So don't be afraid to hold yourself accountable, but you got to protect that initial prospecting time. Now, some of you that are brand new, you can get out there and you can, visit 20 businesses a day. You can talk to 20 new business owners a day. But what will happen real quickly if you're not careful is you'll get all these customers lined up and you'll get your pipeline full and you'll stop getting out there to prospect and get new people in. That's a huge, huge mistake. You got to protect your prospecting time. So make sure that every single day, I was talking to Vic Travagante. I don't know if he's on the call today, but he's one of our top agents, does a really good job. And one of the things he's done lately that's had a big impact on his business is that he gets out and every single day he meets 5 new business owners and adds them to the CRM database. So every day he's out there and he's getting 5 new business owners that he's talking to. So even if he makes a sale in the morning, does an install in the afternoon, he's still going to get out and meet 5 new business owners. So you got to have that kind of attitude. Otherwise, what will happen is, your pipeline's going to dry up, and then you're going to be in trouble. All right. Number 3, always leveraging. Use a system to track your scripts. Let me give you a little tip here. Something I've done. I use Google Docs. If you go to docs.google.com, the URL that you see there, if you go to that URL, Google Docs, I personally don't love it for functionality for things like spreadsheet formulas and stuff like that. But it's really, really great for scripts because you can share it with somebody if they want to get some feedback from somebody else. But the nice thing is, it's in real time. You can manage it there, and you can access it from anywhere. So I like to have my opening pitch, my rebuttals to certain objections in there. And then what I can do is I review that on a regular basis to, first of all, make sure I'm saying what I'm planning to say, make sure I know my lines. But then also, also that allows me to make changes. So I can make a lot of changes to it and make adjustments. And if a rebuttal is not working or if an opening pitch is not working in a certain area, then maybe I'll make a change and make an adjustment to that. Okay, so always learning, always living, always leveraging. What we're going to do now, I'm going to turn off my webcam here, and let me see if I can get Jonathan Ruiz on the line, and then John's going to give us a quick tip from the field. Now, after John's done giving us his tip from the field, we are going to move forward to our workbook, and we're going to go through our opening workbook. For those of you that haven't used it before, I think you are really going to find it very, very useful. And so we're going to go through the opening workbook, and then once we're done going through that opening workbook, again, we're going to open it up. So if you would like to give us your opening pitch, please have that ready. And then I will call on you as soon as we're done with our opening workbook. You can give me your opening pitch, and I'll give you a little critique on that. And then after that, we're going to take objections. So any objections that you're getting, again, we're trying to focus mainly on objections that you're receiving early in the presentation that are keeping you from moving forward in the conversation. Any objections like that, then you can type them out in the question box, and we'll answer those. I'll do my best rebuttal to that at the end of this webinar. So with that said here, all right, John, I got you unmuted. Go ahead and give us a tip from the field today.
All right, thank you, James. Well, it's going to be a few tips from the field, not just one. I go out there, at least 3 times a week, and I'm either, prospecting or, visiting my clients, networking and doing other things. But when we go out on the field to prospect, it's very easy for us to, go into a business and then if they say, oh, I'm not interested or whatever the case might be, if we don't know what our rebuttal is for that objection, we just tend to say, okay, and then we walk out. That's a very bad move, especially if you're in sales, because if you're in sales, you're supposed to sell. So I want to tell you guys that every time that you guys go out there and you go out prospecting and you get a difficult client, sometimes, you know what, you're not going to get everybody that you come in contact with. But at the same time, always leave a mark. What I mean by a mark is, always leave it open for some information. What I usually tell, clients that that are not really interested and they don't want to hear me and they don't want to listen and they're very, very rude, I'll just tell them, that's fine. I definitely understand where you're coming from, being that this is a very competitive market, and you probably already heard about 10 people, coming in here telling you that they could save you money. But what I like to do is show you how I'm different and better. Is it possible I could get your email? I would like to subscribe you to our newsletter and then also send you some free information so you know how this business works. Because once you know how this business works, you'll know that I'm giving you a good deal. And, really that's what it comes down to, Mr. Customer. Would that be okay with you? I know a lot of the times they'll say, yeah, sure. Who's going to say no to free information, Especially nowadays, you need to be a wise person in business in order to succeed. So, tell them that. If they say no, because of the current situation, don't you think it's good to be well informed nowadays, Mr. Customer? I mean, what's the worst they could say? No, get out of my store? Okay, that's fine. But the point is that you leave some information. What I leave as information is my business card. I plant that seed with a business card, and I also take their phone number, their address, and their email. Obviously, their name. Reason why is because I can put that on a database, and I could always go back and follow up with that guy 2 weeks later, 3 months later, 6 months later. It doesn't matter. So, I've gotten myself a few leads actually this week from that. Just happened to go through my little list of people that weren't interested, and I just said hi. Basically, I just called them. That's another thing. Don't be afraid to pick up the phone call. See, a lot of us we like to go out there and prospect door to door, and some of us hate telemarketing. But in reality, if you're in this business, you're going to have to call people on the phone anyway. I'll give you a little background on my story. When I started, I was actually selling for a large company in downtown Chicago. What they actually did is they just had us call a bunch of numbers through a automated dialer, and I was actually pretty good at this, but it gets tiring after a while. So the point of this story is that even though I started in the business doing telemarketing, then I moved into going business to business, knocking on people's doors and stuff like that. You kind of get accustomed to doing that, and then you stop doing the cold calling and telemarketing in a way, or just basically connecting with people through the phone. So don't be afraid to pick up the phone and just say you're driving down the road and you see looks like a nice business that you could do business with. Pick up their phone from their sign and call them. Hey, can I speak to the owner? Hey, this is what I do. I'm a local business owner. I'd love to show you what I can do. A lot of the times they're open to see what you're able to do for them. So don't be afraid of that. Number 2, free equipment. I suggest to new agents that they do at least their first few deals with free equipment. Reason why is because if you're going to reprogram a machine and you're not very, very knowledgeable on how to do it, even though technical support will walk you through it, it's still kind of a hassle for you and the merchant. So it's best to do the reprogram at your home. And in this case, you set them up with a free terminal, then you take their machine and you reprogram it at home. So that way you always look like a professional, and the actual process of switching over is seamless. That's what customers are interested about. I don't know about you guys, but if I actually went through a few businesses this week and they told me, I don't want to go through it again, it's just a hassle. You're going to hear that very often. So the only way to overcome that is to show them different. And obviously that's part of it when it comes to installing the machine. I would suggest that if you're getting free equipment, you send it to your address, send it to your home. Reason why is because it's very important that when you go, walk in there and you install the machine is done correctly. What I mean is they actually build a file pertaining to the type of business that it is. For example, restaurants, they have a tip line. If it's a retail, they have automated batch, at a certain time. If it's a grocery store, they have to have the EBT on and connected. So it's good to send it to your home before you go and install, because by the time you get to the place, you'll know if that machine is set up properly. And if it's not, you're going to fix it at home. Don't fix it at the store. That's going to make you look a little dumb. And I'm being really serious. Gone through that plenty of times. And, that's something that I go by now. I do not install without me checking out the machine first. Number 3, when you're reprogramming, try to do it somewhere else. That's just it's touching base on what I just said earlier, but yeah, that's very important. When you're reprogramming, try not to do it at the store's location unless you have no other option. If that's the case, then obviously you're going to have to do it, and you have to go in there really early before they open or really late, and you have to schedule that with the merchant. Number 4, we're almost done. Number 4 is very easy to get distracted when we're out on the field. You know, we'll go into this store and then we'll start, just looking at stuff, and don't get distracted. Just go straight to the point. Go to find the person that takes care of the merchant account and pitch them. It's very easy for us to act like we're not really prospecting because we feel that we're going to be frowned upon, we're going to be looked down upon and stuff like that. It's really not that way. If they're not interested, you move on to the next one, but still take a little information so you could send information later, and also put them in your pipeline. So yeah, that's one of the things. And last but not least, I'm going to get to the point here. Have fun when you're out prospecting. It's very hard for us to get out there, right? It's kind of like just very hard to get to the gym. But once you get there, it's pretty much a breeze. Just when you go there, have fun. Go out there, and the way that I see it is more like hanging out. I'm going to go to work, but I'm really hanging out. I'm, going to different areas. I'm visiting people. I'm making friends. You know what I'm saying? That's basically what I go out and do. So, and I have fun doing it. But when you have fun doing something, you get to be really good at it. So just try to go out there and have fun. Don't take it too serious. If somebody tells you, no, get out of my store, or starts yelling or whatever the case might be, they might be rude. Don't take it serious. Brush it off your shoulder. Go on to the next one. There's thousands and thousands of businesses out there that will allow you to get your sales and obviously make a lot of money. So, yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. I wish you guys best of luck next coming week. And James, I'm passing it over to you.
Awesome, man. Thanks, John. Man, those are some really, really good tips. I have to say, though, about the John was talking there about the installations, and let me just kind of reiterate that. That's a really, really good tip. Full name and introduction. Hi, my name is James Shepard. I'm a local business owner providing credit card processing services. I start out with my full name and introduction, to that merchant. So always make sure you're doing that. And you'd be surprised how many times I've seen agents not do that, where they just go in and say, I want to find out, if I can give you a free estimate on your credit card processing. They haven't even said their name. They haven't said what they're doing, so you got to slow it down a little bit. Start out with your full name and introduction. Next, number 2, example target statement, okay? Now, you want to make sure that your opening pitch is very targeted. Now, this is one area where a lot of you guys, hold on one second here. Okay, a lot of you guys, this is an area where you could really improve, okay? Some of you that are already doing really well in your sales, if you included what I call a targeted statement in your opening pitch, it would really increase the response that you're going to get in the field. And let me explain what I mean by that, okay? A targeted statement means you are using words that are going to catch that business owner's attention. So if I'm in a pizza shop and I'm in the city of Altoona, Pennsylvania, then I'm going to make sure that the words pizza shop and Altoona, Pennsylvania are in my opening pitch. Why? Because that is a targeted statement that's going to catch their attention. If I say, right now I'm working with pizza shops in the Altoona, Pennsylvania area offering a special program on merchant services, all of a sudden it really sets me apart from my competitors, because now I don't have to try to generalize it. They know that, man, this guy's got a special program just for pizza shops. So what will happen is, if that business owner, if they say, well, somebody else has already been in here, I've had a bunch of people. Well, I understand that, Mr. Jones, but I'm talking about this is a special program. I've designed the pricing and everything just for pizza shops, and I'm really trying to get you a great deal on this. It's going to just catch their attention more and get them more interested. So, and again, you could use a totally different targeted statement. Obviously, for a retail business, it's going to be very different. So every type of business would have a different targeted statement depending on where you're prospecting and depending on who you're prospecting for, what type of business, and but have a targeted statement. Okay. Next, what do you do? Okay, this is where I say, now what I like to do is I like to say credit card processing instead of merchant services. Merchant services, a lot of business owners don't know what that is. So you want to say, we process credit cards, okay? Sometimes I'll even say I set up credit card machines. You know, I'll say something. You want to make sure they know what you do, okay? Very, very important. You don't want it to be vague or them to be wondering, what does this guy do? Make sure they know what you do in your opening pitch. So you got to have something there that says what you do. Then next you got to say who else does it. Now, for some of you that are brand new, and you might think, well, I don't have anybody right now that I can point to. I don't have any current customers. That's okay. As soon as you go out prospecting, if you meet somebody and then you're coming back to do a follow-up, you can use that. You could say, well, you know, I'm not sure if you know Bill over at Bill's Pizza, but I'm actually going to do a follow-up with him today. And so try to tell about somebody else that does it. Now, you don't always have to use the business type in your targeted statement. It could just be the area. You know, I'm working with people. If you're in a small town, you know, for instance, my office is here in Claysburg, Pennsylvania, is where my office is that I work at, right by my house. And so a lot of times when I'm prospecting here, I'll just say something like, you know, my name is James Shepard. I'm a local business owner here in the area. I'm actually based right here in Claysburg, Pennsylvania, and I work currently with, you know, I'll name 3 or 4 people that I work with here in Claysburg. The town is so small I can literally point to them usually and say, I take care of them, I take care of them. And I'll point to them and, you know, so that helps them to know who else does it. But I might also say, now the reason I stopped by today, Mr. Jones, is because I'm checking back with Bill. He asked me to do a cost analysis. And I thought, you know, while I'm in the area, maybe I get a cost analysis done for you as well. Who are you using for your credit card processing? So you've got to have something in there that ties what you're doing to somebody else in that person's kind of social network. You know, who else might they know? Who else might they know of? And really tie that into your opening pitch. Okay. Next, at the very end, you want to end with an open-ended question. Now, I'm going to give you 2 possible open-ended questions that I like to use at the end of my opening. The most common one, and the one I use when I'm prospecting in my local market here, I like to use the one that I have in the opening pitch I just gave you. Who are you using for your credit card processing right now? Okay. Now, I'm always amazed when I talk to agents. I mean, this last week I probably talked to, I don't know, 10 or 15 agents, you know, and I'm always amazed when I ask them, what's your opening? Because a lot of times they'll say, well, I use the same opening you use, James. And I'll say, okay, go ahead and give it to me. And when they give me the opening, it's really good. But at the end, it's like they just trail off and like wait for me to say no or something. It's so weird. You know, they'll do it like, you know, I've heard a million times I've heard this pitch. Hi, I'm James Shepard. I'm a local business owner here in the area providing credit card processing services. I actually do the credit card processing for Mr. Jones down the street. And so I was just stopping by to, you know, introduce myself. And, you know, I just wanted to talk with you about your credit card processing because we have really, really good rates. And we offer free credit card machines. And we offer month-to-month agreements. And you know, it's like, oh my goodness, you know, I want to put my head through a window. Are you just waiting for me to say no? You know, okay, give your opening pitch, all right, and then end it, okay, and end it with something good. End it with an open-ended question, okay? You don't want to end your pitch by rambling on about all the benefits you offer. You don't want to end your opening pitch by saying, so do you want to go with me? Or so are you going to give me a statement? Why? Because those are yes and no questions, all right? Yes and no questions are not good for opening pitches, okay? So end with an open-ended question, okay? An open-ended question means something like, who are you using for your credit card processing? That's a real easy one. You could also do an alternate one I've been using up in Altoona, Pennsylvania, where it's a lot more competitive. I've been using this one at the end. I'll say, I was just curious, are you guys like a local small business or do you have a whole bunch of locations all over the place? Or I might say, are you guys a local business or are you a corporate type business? And I say that because, again, it's an open-ended question. All I want to do is I want to get my information out there. Then I want to say something that's going to continue the conversation. I'm not trying to close the deal right now. I'm just trying to say something that's going to get me to the next step. Let me continue the conversation. Okay? Now, in this particular pitch right here, that we end with the open-ended question. Notice at the end we end with, who are you currently using for credit card processing? Now, what the important thing about your opening pitch, guys, is that it needs to be planned out in advance. You need to know exactly what you're going to say to whatever it is that they say. Okay, your opening pitch should be planned out. I mean, to its entirety. The whole thing needs to be planned out perfectly. Everything that they can say, you know exactly what you're going to say. Okay, so who are you using for your credit card processing? So let's scroll down here. All right, so they respond with whatever. Follow up. This is my example of the one that I use. Okay, I'm familiar with them. I've actually had a few people switch over from them, but anyway, probably the biggest difference between our service and theirs is that because I have this program customized for your type of business, our transaction fee is just a lot lower than their transaction fee because most of your transactions are check cards. I'm sure you've noticed that, right? Now, let me kind of break this pitch down because this isn't exactly word for word what I normally say, but let me break this pitch down into kind of its elements so you can see how this would fit into your opening pitch, okay? Number one, once you ask the open-ended question and they respond, okay, number one, we need to acknowledge their response and we need to say something back, you know? So, I'm with my local bank. Okay, yeah, I'm actually really familiar with First Commonwealth. I'm actually really familiar with PNC Bank. Whatever it is, okay? We got to acknowledge their response. People like to be heard. They don't like people that are just waiting to say what they're going to say, you know? Listen to the customer and acknowledge what they said, okay? Acknowledge their response. Okay, yeah, I'm familiar with them. Next, number two, normalize their situation, okay? Here's what business owners do as a tactic to get away from you. What they do is they try to make their situation seem unusual. They try to make their situation seem impossible for you to sell. I deal with this a lot where I talk to agents and they say all kinds of crazy things to me, you know, like, well, oh man, out here, I love when agents say that. Well, out here, you know, in my market, you know, as if you're in like the Siberia of credit card processing sales. No one will buy, you know. Okay, if you notice yourself blaming your area, you're definitely on the wrong track. It's time to regroup and kind of rethink your opening pitch, okay? But here's what they'll say. They'll say stuff like, well, in my area, you know, everybody out here tells me that, you know, they're whatever, you know, they're with PNC or Bank, or they're with, whatever, First National Bank, or they're with this company and they won't switch because, you know, they really like being with their bank or whatever it is. Now, what is that person really doing? Okay. What that person is really doing is that business owner is trying to make their situation seem unusual. They're trying to make their situation seem like, well, you can't possibly sell me because I'm with my local bank, or I have a great deal, or whatever, okay? So whatever they say, we got to normalize it. In other words, we got to make it seem like no big deal. I've been there, I've done that, I've dealt with that before. So how do I say that in this particular pitch is I say, oh, okay, I know who that is. Yeah, okay, First National Bank, yeah. I've actually had a few people switch over from them. But anyway, and see what I did there? And then I say, anyway, and I'm going forward, but notice what I did. I normalized their situation. I said, yeah, I've actually had a lot of people switch over from them. If somebody says, well, I've got a really, really good rate, I say, yeah, you know what? I actually have had a lot of people that also felt that they had a really good rate until they saw our cost analysis and, you know, that we were actually able to save them a lot of money. But anyway, see, I'm normalizing their situation. I don't want to let them get away with saying something that makes it seem like they're the exception to the rule and I can't sell them, okay? Next, then you want to answer the question, why are you better? Why are you better, okay? So that's where I say, that's where I say the thing about, you know, the biggest difference in our service from theirs or whatever. So you got to have a benefit. And so, you know, you could use month-to-month agreement. You could use free equipment. You could do, you know, any of those different things like that. So normalize their situation and then answer the question, why are you better? Now, one other thing I want to point out before we move on is a very important one-word answer. Notice how I use, let me go back up here. Notice how I use the word anyway, okay? Anyway is a very, very important word, okay? Anyway is a word you use after you've said something that you need to say, but that you don't want a response to, Okay? It's kind of like a way of just getting something out there and then changing the subject. You guys should practice using this in your pitch, because there's a lot of times where you need to say something, but you don't want them to do. A lot of times is they'll be like, well, I want to have next day funding. And I'll say, yeah, I know a lot of people are really concerned with the next day funding. And honestly, next day funding is one of those things where, you know, if I get it to you in 1 day or 2 days, as long as I'm saving you 150, 200 bucks a month, you're probably going to be pretty happy with that. But anyway, and then I go on to the next thing. See what I did? I'm saying something, but I don't want them to respond, because if they respond, they might say, well, no, it's actually a really big deal to me, but I don't want them to say that. So I just kind of get my line in, and then I say, anyway, and then I move on to the next thing, okay? So answer the question of why you're better. Then get the first yes, okay? Get the first yes. This is really important. Now, here's how I did it here. The way I did it in this particular pitch, let me scroll back up, is I said, our transaction fee and rates are significantly lower for check cards. And I'm sure you've noticed, Mr. Jones, that your check card transactions probably make up 60, 70% of your total business. You've noticed that, haven't you? Now, notice when I say that, I'm going to, if those of you that can see my webcam, let me kind of share some nonverbal communication tips, okay? Watch the way that I say this line. I'm going to say, now, I'm sure you've noticed, Mr. Jones, that most of your check card transactions, your transactions, like 60, 70% of them are check card versus credit card. You've noticed that, haven't you? Do you see how I do that? I'm shaking my head yes. You've noticed that, haven't you? Okay. If I had $1 for every time I've gone out with an agent and they've said something like, so Mr. Jones, would you be interested in giving me a statement? And they're shaking their head no. And it's like, what are you expecting the guy to say? Okay. You got to look at your nonverbal communication. Okay. You got to shake your head yes when you want the customer to say yes. Shake your head no when you want the customer to say no. Okay. That's a really good tip that you can learn. And it will really help you out a lot. All right. Next, so you got to get their first yes. Now again, you could use anything here. Okay. We're not getting a yes to like the sale. All we're trying to get a yes to is just something, anything, we're trying to get a response, basically. We're trying to get some kind of a yes. So we're trying to get something that's going to move the sale forward. For instance, you might say this. You might say, Mr. Jones, I'm a local business owner. So what I do is I provide a month-to-month agreement because my customers find that by me providing a month-to-month agreement, I have to provide good service. Otherwise I'm going to lose my accounts, because if I'm not a long-term agreement, the only reason my customers stay with me is because of me providing great service. I mean, that makes sense, right? See how I'm doing that? Now he's going to say, well, yeah, James, that makes sense. Now what just happened? Well, he didn't say yes to the sale, but he did say yes to the fact that I'm providing really good service, so that's a bonus. So I'm moving forward in the sale. Okay, so get that first yes out there. Okay, next, call to action. So now he says yes. Now in this case, again, he's saying yes to the fact that that most of his transactions are check cards. Okay. So now I'm going to say, okay, well, just the fact that you already see how many of your transactions are check cards tells us we might be able to save you some money, Bob. Probably the best thing about this program is that we provide a detailed cost analysis to you at no charge, along with some additional free information. Now, would you mind if I went ahead and just shot you an email over with that free cost analysis and some additional information? Now, you could also change this pitch around a little bit. Again, if you're in person, you're going to say something like, would you mind if I stopped back by to give you a free cost analysis along with some other free information? And when you say that, well, let me break it down here. We'll break it down because we're getting a little off track. Here we go. So number one, compliment the merchant. Okay, so whatever it is that they say yes to, you got to compliment them for their yes. Okay, so again, we're playing chess here. You guys understand we're playing chess. Okay, we got to be a few moves ahead of our customer, our prospect. Okay, we got to be a few moves ahead. So you got to think about this. And you might have to, this is why this workbook is so powerful. You might have to go back and change a couple of things you did at the beginning because maybe your opening is not leading up to this, okay? You got to lead up to this. So you got to say something that they're going to say yes to that you can compliment them on. So when they say, yeah, I've noticed most of my transactions are check cards. Okay, great. Well, man, I mean, Bob, just the fact that you've noticed that, and you're looking at your statement, you're aware, I mean, that's great. And really that shows us that we probably could save you some money. See what I'm doing? I'm complimenting him and I'm using what he told me to move the sale forward, okay? I'm using what he said to move my sale forward. I'm not selling him. He's like selling himself, okay? So compliment the merchant. Next, highlight the free cost analysis. Okay, so once you compliment the merchant, what you want to do next is you want to talk about the free cost analysis and how great it is. We have this awesome free cost analysis. It's actually an Excel spreadsheet that I print out and bring back to you. It's free of charge. It shows you exactly, line by line, exactly what we can save you compared to the current customer, current company that you're with. Then you're going to move in to get them to say yes to a free cost analysis without asking them for a statement. Now, this is really important. I would say out of all the things in your opening pitch and prospecting, this is probably the area where most of our agents that I talk to don't use this. They use a lot of this other stuff, but they don't use this last thing, and it really, really hurts them, okay? It's a small thing, but it makes a big, big difference, okay? Here's what you want to do. You want to get this person to say yes to a cost analysis before you ask them for the statement, because if I just ask this person for a statement right now, so I said, we have this great cost analysis and we give you, a side-by-side comparison, et cetera, and so what I'd like to do is I'd like to go ahead and get that for you. Now, do you have a statement here I could take a look at? Now, what's going to happen right there? You guys all know what's going to happen, because if you've been out prospecting, you know what they're going to say. They're going to say normally, 9 times out of 10 at least, they're going to say, oh, no, I don't want to give you a statement, or no, I don't have a statement here, or I don't want to provide that information. They're going to offer some resistance to giving you the statement, right? So let's not ask for the statement yet, okay? Let's instead confirm that they do want a free cost analysis, because that's a lot easier. So we can say stuff like, now, if I came back and just gave you a free cost analysis along with some other information about our pricing and our program, I'm sure you wouldn't mind if I provided that to you for free, right? See, they're going to say, well, yeah, that's fine. You can provide me a free cost analysis. You got to get them to say yes to the free cost analysis. I'm sure you wouldn't mind if I provided you with a free cost analysis to show you what we could save you, would you? You wouldn't mind that, would you? That sounds good, doesn't it? I'm getting ahead of myself. We'll talk about tie downs in a minute, all right? So we get them to say yes to that, all right? Now, wrap up example. Here we go. Okay. Great. Hey, I'll get that right out for you. And let's see now. Now, you can either ask them for email. This particular one I was doing for guys that were telemarketing, but if you're out in the field, you'd say, great, that's fine. I'll swing by and drop that information off for you. How does Thursday sound? And they'll say, oh, yeah, that sounds great. Okay, awesome. Now, obviously, I will need a copy of your credit card processing statement to do the side-by-side comparison and everything. Do you have one handy here, or should I pick that up when I come back on Thursday? Now, I have had so many agents tell me they can't get the statement, people won't give them the statement, and every time I've had a call like that and I've done this role play with them, I've never had an agent that was actually doing this. Never. That was telling me they couldn't get the statement, okay? When I go out in the field, guys, I get the statement like almost every time. I mean, literally. If I get past the opening, I get somebody that's interested. If they're at all interested, I get the statement every time. I don't have a problem with it at all. Now, I have a couple other tricks that I use, tricks of the trade. One of the most important ones I do is I use my smartphone. So if people say, oh, I don't want to give you that or whatever after this point, I'll say, well, I tell you what, I understand. I'm sure you don't want to give me any sensitive information, but really, honestly, all I need is just the fee section. So I'm sure you wouldn't mind if I'll get out my phone and I'll just take a quick picture of just the fees section of your statement. You can see the picture I take. I don't need any of the other stuff. You can, hang on to your statement, and then I'll just take that back to do the free cost analysis. So you wouldn't mind that, right? If I just take a picture of the fee section. One of the most important things in sales, guys, is how you end the things that you're saying. What you say right before you let the customer respond is really going to determine how they respond. You notice how at the end of that statement I just made, the thing that I said was, I'm sure you wouldn't mind if I just took a picture of the fee section, would you? You see, I'm using body language, I'm using confidence, I'm using words like I'm sure you wouldn't mind. I could at least... statements like that. Now, let's talk about this wrap-up example, though, so hopefully you don't even have to worry about that. You can just get the statement. Here's what I do. First of all, I lock in the yes. You got to lock in the yes. They said yes. They said yes, I want a cost analysis. You got to say, okay, great. That's awesome. Hey, I'll swing back by here to drop off that cost analysis for you. Now, how does, let's say Thursday afternoon. Are you going to be here Thursday afternoon? Yeah, I'll be here Thursday afternoon. Okay, great. I'll swing by here Thursday about 2 o'clock. Does that work okay for you? Yes. See what I'm doing? I'm locking it in. So I'm coming back on Thursday at 2 o'clock already, okay? So now that I've set the stage, okay, they said they want a cost analysis. They said I can come back and drop it off Thursday at 2. Now I'm going to make a statement that's going to make them feel foolish to not give me a processing statement, okay? I'm going to say something like, great, well, I'll swing by and drop it off Thursday. Oh, hey, one other thing, obviously I do need the credit card processing statement that you have now so I can do that side-by-side comparison for you. Do you have one of those handy, Bob, or should I just pick it up when I come back on Thursday? See how I'm saying that? Very nonchalant, very assumptive, because they already said they want a side-by-side comparison, so obviously I need a credit card processing statement to do that, right? So now I've set myself up so if they respond something negative, no, I don't want to give you that information, I'll just say, well, you want the side-by-side comparison. I have to have the statement to do the side-by-side comparison. I understand if you don't want to give me any sensitive information, I can just take a picture with my smartphone I'll just get just the fees section, and then that way, I don't want you to have to give out any sensitive info. I just need the fees section so I can do the side-by-side comparison you want. So do you have one of those handy? I'll take a picture of it and I'll show you the picture. Is that agreeable to you? Is that fair enough? So you see what I'm doing there? You want to you can have a good follow-up because you've set yourself up really, really well. Now I'm going to answer questions that we got over here, and then we're going to go down and do one more thing here in this workbook, and then we'll move on to getting some feedback from you guys. All right, let's answer some questions here. Here we go. I don't have any questions yet. Okay, good. All right, well then let's just keep on going. All right. Callback script, I'm not going to cover that today. We'll do that another time. We're not going to cover this either. Okay. Tie down role play. All right. Now I want you guys, as I'm saying these, I want you to think about which tie down would fit in here. Now what's a tie down? A tie down is, isn't it, doesn't it, don't they, won't they, aren't you, wouldn't you? It's a tie down. You say it at the end or beginning or middle of a statement to say, wouldn't you be interested in receiving a cost analysis? I'm sure you'd want me to stop back by on Thursday and provide that free information, wouldn't you? That's a tie down, okay? So see if you can figure out which tie down would fit in here, okay? This makes sense to you, doesn't it? Okay? This makes sense to you, doesn't it? Blank, be interested in receiving a free cost analysis. Wouldn't you be interested in receiving a free cost analysis? Okay? You would be interested in receiving a free cost analysis, wouldn't you? See how we have them, the two different ones? You got to learn to put them sometimes at the beginning, sometimes in the middle, sometimes at the end. Otherwise, it gets to be too repetitive. And you can't use these very much in your pitch. Otherwise, you're going to come off like a used car salesman. So you can only use them a little bit. Be honest, Bob. This is a better deal than you thought I would come back with. What's the words that go there? Okay? Isn't it? Okay? I've used this many times. Okay, I'll get done with. It's really funny to use this. Actually, I wish some of you guys would actually take some of this stuff and just use it. It's so funny. Going back to John's point about having fun in the field, try this line and just watch how fun it is. Because the merchant literally doesn't know how to respond. They have to say yes, and once they say yes, they know that they have to buy. It's so funny. But anyway, I've used this line a lot. I get done with the presentation. I'm like, so Bob, it looks like we're going to save you over $1,000 a year just on your credit card processing services. Now, be honest with me, Bob, that's a better deal than you thought I was going to come back for you, isn't it? And it's so funny to watch them say, yeah, actually, it's a really good deal, and then it's like, okay, you just sign them up, So anyway, I really like that line. Blank, going to start taking advantage of these savings now rather than waiting another month? What do you think would go there? Aren't you? Aren't you going to start taking advantage of these savings now rather than waiting another month? See, I'm using that tie down, but I'm using it at the beginning. Aren't you going to, that's a tie down. Okay? I explained everything to you carefully. What comes next? I explained everything to you carefully, didn't I? Okay, so we're using a tie down. Okay, so when they say, I don't know if I want to move forward, James. Oh, I'm sorry about that, Bob. No, I explained everything to you carefully, didn't I? So then they say, oh, yeah, it wasn't you. You explained it all great. And see, now I'm moving forward again. Okay? This makes sense. Doesn't it? This makes sense, doesn't it? Okay? There's another really good one to use, all right? That I use that all the time, I'm sure you would take the time to at least look over a cost analysis if I provided one to you for free. What comes next? Okay? I'm sure you would take the time to at least look over a cost analysis if I provided one to you for free, wouldn't you? These are very, very powerful sales lines, okay? You really need to be using these lines all the time, and it's going to help you out a great deal in your sales. So, all right, let me get my PowerPoint back up here. Give me 1 second. So here's what I want to do now. First of all, Is there anybody that, and if there's not any volunteers, that's fine, but is there anybody that has an opening that you would like to give us on this webinar? You'd like me to unmute your line and give me your opening pitch? If so, just raise your hand over to the right. If there's anybody on here that is gutsy enough to give us your opening pitch here. Okay, we got, let's see, EJ. All right, let's see here. All right, man, I got you unmuted. Go ahead.
Hey James, how you doing? My name is EJ. I'm a POS provider here in the South Florida area, and I just stopped by to walk in and see how you're doing and provide you some information that can further increase your business. And stop.
Nice. Now see, EJ, that's a perfect example of a great opening pitch, and all you got to do now is you need to write out that last line that you want to use. So for that particular pitch, and I use that almost exactly all the time, what I'll usually say at the end is I'll say, have you guys ever considered using a touchscreen point of sale system? So that's one line you can do. The other line you could use at the end of that is say, if they already have a point of sale system, you could say, now how long have you guys had this point of sale system? Those are both open-ended questions. How long have you had this point of sale system, and have you ever thought about using a touchscreen point of sale system? But hey, that was awesome. That's a good pitch. I like that. And again, notice how he's using the name of his city. Now he's using point of sale as the opening there, but he's using the name of his city in there, so that's really good. Let's see, we got anybody else? Looks like EJ is the only one brave enough to give us his opening on the call today. Or the only one with audio enabled, I'm not sure. But all right, well, thanks very much, EJ. I appreciate that. Now, here's what I want to do. I am going to, hold on one second here. All right, I'm going to go through this little slide about objections. And while I'm doing that, I would like for you guys to type out in the question box any objections that you are experiencing. Now again, let's try, now any objection is fine, but I really want to try to focus on what is holding you back from collecting statements, from getting in the door. You know, what are the objections that you're hearing that are just blowing you out of the water, you know, right out of the gate. You know, as soon as you walk in, you're using your opening and you're getting these objections just right away, and they're keeping you from making a sale. I'm going to let you watch me rebuttal any objections that you have. So just type them out in the question box, and, you know, I'll be glad to rebuttal any objections that you throw out there so you can kind of see how I do it, okay? Now, first of all, before we do that, let's talk about objections a little bit, okay? First of all, understand that 70% of in-person sales come from interested clients. So what you really want to do is you want to try to focus on your opening pitch and understand that, you know, you need to, the best way to avoid objections there is to have a good opening pitch that's going to take them through the opening and get them past a lot of these real common objections. Because most of your sales really are going to come from people that liked your opening, liked you, and kind of move forward with the process, okay? Very few people that when you walk in, they're like, I'm not interested. Okay, that's going to be a tough sale. Understand that you're not going to get very many of those people to purchase from you. So it's actually more productive to try to keep them from saying that by having a really catchy opening that catches their attention, okay? So make sure you have a strong opening before you start focusing on objections. Next, understand that objections actually mean I don't like you or I don't trust you. That's normally what people mean by an objection. So understand that when they say, I don't want to switch again, it was such a big hassle that, you know, I just don't want to go through that. Now, what are they really saying? What they're really saying is, I don't know you very well and I don't trust you to make this an easy process for me. I don't trust you to switch me over to your company, right? So understand that what you're really trying to do is you're trying to get people to like you and you're trying to build trust, okay? Because all objections really have to do with trust or them not liking you as a general rule, okay? Objections are a validation of first impressions, so because of that, understand how important your your expressions are, your nonverbal communication, the way you dress, everything about the way you present yourself. Understand that most objections are just people validating their first impressions. You know what I mean? You walked in, you looked like kind of a bum. They didn't think you were professional. So their objection is, I don't think I'd be interested in switching to your company. Now, really what they're saying is, you look like a slob and I don't trust you. Okay, so you got to understand that most objections are people saying I don't like you or I don't trust you. So understand how important all the little things are. Now, this is something that's really difficult to get across in a training, and I've always really struggled with it. It's one reason why most of my training is video, because I do want to at least be able to get across my nonverbal communication to you. And one of the reasons I love that we have the webcam now for our webinars. But it's still really difficult for me to train you on how to do this. How do you train somebody to look confident? I don't know. That's kind of tough. But I know it when I see it, and so do you. You know when somebody walks up to you and they're confident, and you can tell when somebody walks up and they're nervous or scared or feeling like foolish or feeling embarrassed. You can tell that naturally. It's just a human ability to be able to tell when somebody's embarrassed or scared or afraid or confident. We can just tell. And so a lot of times an agent will call me and, they're using a great pitch. Maybe they're using my pitch verbatim. And, they're out there, they're using it. And, and then I say, okay, give me your pitch. And they give it to me and I say, oh, that's terrible. And they say, well, I'm using the exact same pitch that you use. And I say, but you're not, because you sound like your cat just died, and you sound like that you just lost all your money, and you sound like a tree just fell on your house. It's like, that's not the same pitch, So, you've really got to work on this, because if you want to have a good pitch, it's not just about saying the right thing, although that's really important. It's also about that nonverbal communication that says, I'm a business owner, I'm confident, I'm busy today just like you are, and I came in here to do some business. So, you got to have that confidence when you're responding to an objection, or especially when you're doing your opening pitch. So practice that, in the mirror. Practice the way that you stand up. Look at yourself in a mirror. Get a full-length mirror, okay? And then do your opening pitch in front of that full-length mirror, okay? Or another thing you can do is ask your spouse or your friends to grade you, okay? In other words, have a couple things. It's a fun thing you can do. Your friends will actually enjoy doing it. Give them like a 1 through 5 rating and say, I'm going to give you an opening pitch. On a scale of 1 to 5, tell me how convincing I was. And on a scale of 1 to 5, tell me how confident I seem. Okay? And practice being confident. And it's funny, I'm telling you, people know. If you get 3 people to watch you do an opening, they can tell you if you're confident. Every single one of them. And they'll give you really good feedback. Okay? Track your responses to gain a better understanding of, how you're doing with your rebuttals. If you got the same objection 50 times this week and you use the same rebuttal 50 times and the person didn't buy 50 times, let me give you a tip. You're probably using the wrong rebuttal, okay? Change it. So, track your responses, I had the 5 or 6 major objection categories on a piece of paper when I got back in my car when I first started out prospecting. I put a little note in there about which objection this person gave me, a little check mark, what objection they gave me. I'd write some notes down and, did they move forward or not, and what line did I use, and I would just take a minute. It would take me 2 or 3 minutes between each prospecting visit, and I would think for a second. Okay, let's see. So I use this rebuttal. This is the response they gave me. How could I change that rebuttal to sound a little better? And I would try to improve that, okay? All right, so I'm done with what I'm going to do. Now I'm going to open it up to you guys. For those of you that have to hop off the webinar, I totally understand. I know we're, I think, past noon or something. So, but I'm going to go ahead and any objections that you have, just type them out in the question box, and I'm going to do my best to answer those for you here, okay? All right, good question, though. Let's see here. Please let me know what your opinion is when you return to the merchant with the statement, and they want to keep the statement because merchants are typically resistant to change, but they're really concerned about saving money. Can't they just take the statement back to their current processor, get them to match it? Yeah, okay. So here's what we're asking, okay? This happens all the time. You do the cost analysis, you come back, you present the cost analysis, and then the merchant says, okay, great, well, thanks so much for this information, James. I'm going to hang on to this and think about it for a couple weeks and get back to you, right? That happens all the time. So let me give you a couple tips. Tip number 1, don't let that happen. Okay, now I'm not saying you can avoid it completely, but don't let that happen. Watch the video we did last week about closing techniques, and don't let that happen. You got to have a smooth process. When you get down to the end of the presentation, you got to smoothly, you don't want to, most guys get to the end of the presentation and they're like, so what do you think? So are you going to go with it? Are you going to go with it? That doesn't work, all right? Don't do that. So if you really want to do well with this, when you get to the end of the presentation, you got to say, okay, great. Now, I think I answered all your questions for you, but are there any other questions that you have for me about the cost analysis? They say, no, it all makes sense. Okay, good. So I explained everything to you good? Okay, great. Now, here's what I want to do. Let me get a little bit of information from you because I want to show you, first of all, our pricing and how it, on the paperwork, how it compares to the cost analysis so you can see that I'm actually giving you the deal that I promised. Then you just pull out the pricing page of the contract and you go through it line by line. Okay, let me show you. So here's, I told you I'd give you 40 basis points. Here's your 40 basis points. Or I told you your qualified transaction rate would be 1.59%. Here's that. And you just go through the fee structure, show them how it matches up with the cost analysis. Then you say, okay, great. Now, do you have any questions about that? No? Okay, great. Let me go ahead and get you to initial right here. So I'm just trying to move through the process, okay? If they bring up a question, oh, I don't know if I'm ready to sign up yet. Oh, I'm sorry, Bob. I certainly don't mean to push you into anything. What are some other questions you have for me? You got to be in control of that conversation. Anytime they're hesitant to say, oh, I'm sorry, I don't mean to be pushy at all. What kind of questions do you have for me? Convert objections into questions. Get them to ask you as many questions as they want, and then just slowly keep moving forward with the process. That's tip number one. Tip number two is you can't always avoid it. Sometimes it's going to happen. They're going to say, yeah, let me leave this information with you, okay? Well, then what I do is I preemptively make a bargain with them. And I say, okay, Bob, well, hey, let me just ask you one favor. And that's fine. I'll leave you this information, okay? But let me ask you two things, okay? Two questions, and then I'll be out of your hair. Number one, what would you say right now, just so I know when I come back to meet with you, what would you say is the number one thing right now that you're still thinking over, or what would be the biggest hurdle to you going with us right now? And try to get some information from them like that. Number two is go ahead and preemptively deal with the whole thing with your other processor. So say, now Bob, let me be honest with you. If you took this cost analysis back to your current processor who you've been using, they might consider matching my price. Now, I don't think they'd get all the way down to where I'm at, but they'd probably get pretty close. Now, the reason they would do that, Bob, is because they don't want to lose your business, okay? But here's the problem. Now, Bob, how long have you been with them? Well, I've been with them for a year, okay? So you've been with them for 12 months, and I'm going to save you $150 a month over what they're charging. So what that means is they've been charging you $150 more per month than what they should have. I mean, really, that was all profit for them. So that means you've paid $1,800 in the last 12 months more than what you should have paid. So let me just ask you one thing, okay? Just so that we're on the same page, would you agree with me that you wouldn't really consider staying with your current processor if they were to match your rate unless they also agreed to refund the money that they've been overcharging you for the last year? Because, I'm the one that came in and showed you the lower prices. So I'm sure just kind of as a matter of, wanting to deal with a small business owner and not trying to take advantage of my time, I'm sure you'd agree to that, right? That unless they're willing to actually refund money that they back charged you for and match the price, then you're not going to actually stay with them, right? So that's what I say, something like that. So good question. Let's see here. Oh, if somebody says, I just switched, I'm with my brother, I'm with my relative, have a nice day. Nothing you're going to say to that. If they're doing processing with their relative or their friend or whatever. I've been using the same bank for 17 years. Okay, this is a really good one, Jeff. Jeff Chu brings this one to us. Great one. Somebody says, hey, I've been using my bank for 17 years. I would never switch. Here's what I tell them. I say, wow, you know what? First of all, I totally understand and I appreciate your loyalty. I mean, that's great. However, let me just tell you two things real quick. Now, notice, guys, this is one thing I do. When I'm about to lose somebody, I always come back with, let me say one thing, or let me say two things, or let me tell you three things. I would never say more than three, but let me give you, let me tell you one thing. Let me tell you two things. It just makes them, oh, okay, they're going to listen to me and let me tell them two things. Let me tell you two things about that, Jeff. Number one, your bank doesn't actually do the processing. Now, this is something that a lot of my clients are confused about before they came on board with me. What your bank does, just so you understand how the process works, I'm not saying it's a bad process, I'm just saying just so you understand how it works. What they do is they took your information 17 years ago as a referral, and they sent that information over to a credit card processing company like mine, and they said, look, can you try to sell this guy? And if you sell Jeff, we want to make sure that we get a percentage of the profit. Okay, so that's how that deal works. So The bank doesn't do the processing, somebody else does. It's totally separate from the bank, but the bank does get a percentage of the profit, which they like, of course, and they want to keep that profit, of course. But here's the other thing I want to tell you. The problem with that, Jeff, is that, a couple things you mentioned there that really are red flags to me. Number one, your bank, because they have to get a percentage of the profit, I can tell you 9 times out of 10 when I've dealt with that particular bank, their merchants have been marked up quite a bit because they have to provide profit from that account for the processor and for the bank. Whereas with me, I'm direct, so you would just be dealing with me, and so that means usually I can give you significantly lower prices. Now, the other thing that tells me is you've been with them for 17 years. Let me ask you a question, Jeff. Do you think that the bank is worried about losing your business as a merchant services customer? You've been with them for 17 years. You've never switched. Do you think they're worried about losing your business? What's he going to say? He's going to say, no, they're not. Okay? So let me ask you this. If they're not worried about losing your business, do you think that they're giving you their most competitive price? And usually that will prompt them to say, no, they're probably not. And I'll say, yeah, you're exactly right, because a lot of things have changed in the last 17 years. I mean, prices have probably come down an average of 40% in the last 17 years. But my guess is your prices have probably slowly gone up over the last 17 years. Why? Because the bank's not worried about losing your business. So let me do this for you. I'm going to help you out, okay? I'm not asking you to switch to me right now. I'm not asking that, honestly. All I'm saying is, let me give you a cost analysis so we know what we're looking at. If we're looking at $5 a month in savings, you're probably not going to switch, right? You're going to stay with the bank, aren't you? He's going to say, yeah, I'd stay with the bank at that. Okay, but if we're talking about $50 a month, if we're talking about $1,000 a year, well, then it might be a different discussion, right? I'm sure that, if we're talking about $1,000 here, you might have a different discussion with me. Does that sound about right? And he's going to say, yeah, it does. Okay. So let me go ahead and give you a cost analysis and let's see what we come up with. So that's how I do it. Dave asked the same question as one earlier. My wife or good friend does my processing. Again, guys, that should account for 1% of all of your prospecting. So just have a nice day. I hope you enjoy that. Now, sometimes I will ask one question there if they say my friend does it. I might say, let me ask you a question, Bob. Certainly, I don't want to damage your friendship in any way, but let me ask you just one question before I go. If I was able to offer you some really significant savings, whatever it might be, $500, $1,000 a year or more in savings, is that something that you would be interested in looking at? And I'll just ask them that. And usually they'll say, no, I could never cancel on my friend or my family member. And then I say, okay, no problem. I understand. Have a nice day. Ken, you're the 4th guy that's been here this week. I love that one. Okay, so let me give you that. Okay, we got to give a little background for this. Okay, so we just get done with our opening pitch, and I say, so who are you using for your credit card processing? Man, you know what? I am not interested. You're the 4th guy that's been in here this week. Plus, I've gotten 10 calls, and I'm not interested at all. I'm going to say a couple things. I'm going to say, Bob, first of all, let me just apologize for myself and for our entire industry. Sometimes I feel like I'm a used car salesman because, there's like so many guys in this industry that come in, they're in for a month and then they leave and they abandon their clients. I want to first of all make sure you understand that I'm not the 4th guy that's come in here this week. I'm the first independent business owner that does credit card processing, that owns a small business in this community. I'm the first one of those to stop by probably in the last 6 months, okay? So it is a very, very different deal. I don't just do credit card processing. I do payroll services, point of sale systems, web design. So I provide a lot of services to small business owners. So that's first of all. But secondly, I want you to understand too, I'm not just saying I do credit card processing, okay? We have a special program, like I mentioned in my opening. I have a special program specifically for my clients here in Claysburg, or I have a special program for pizza shops here in the Claysburg or Altoona area or whatever. So I'm going to use that targeted statement. And so all I want to do is I just want to give you some free information about our program because you're smart enough to see a good deal, recognize a good deal when you see one, Bob. And so all I want to do is give you some free information along with the cost analysis that just kind of shows you what our program could do for you. And I'll leave it up to you to decide if it's a good deal or not. Is that fair enough? So I would use something like that. Let's see here. Here's another one. Jeff says, I don't trust people that just walk in my door with information. That is why you always carry a couple letters of reference with you. Say, Bob, you know what? I don't blame you. I don't either. So I certainly don't blame you for that. Now, here's what I did. I brought a couple of letters of reference with me. Or if you didn't, you could say, I tell you what I want to do for you. I'd like to come back next week. drop off some free information, and I'm going to include in that 2 letters of reference from small business owners here in the area that have been using my services, or 2 small business owners that are willing to vouch for my character, and you can contact them. They'd be glad to give me a solid reference. Now, if I'm willing to do that and provide that information to you, would you mind if I dropped off that information for you next week on Thursday? So that's how I deal with that. I have 10 of you credit card guys in here this week. I'm with my bank. We already dealt with that one, so I'll leave that one go. Credit card processing is with my point of sale provider. I can't switch. Wow, you're gonna hear that one a lot, especially moving forward. So let's deal with that. Okay. Now you know what? I got it. My point of sale system, they combined everything, and it's all locked in, and I can't get out of it. Okay. Number one, we need to first of all establish that there is a problem. Let me explain the problem. Okay, if I was talking to the customer, this is what I'd say. I say, okay, hey, I understand that. I have, first of all, I have dealt with a lot of people that have point of sale systems. 9 times out of 10, we can actually switch them, even though the point of sale provider says that you can't. But first of all, I'm going to say, but anyway. But first of all, let me explain a problem to you, and let me see if you recognize this as a problem. Okay, so your point of sale company, the company that set up your point of sale system, they put the credit card processing in with your point of sale system. Is that right? And they say yes. Okay. Now, you're telling me that you can't get out of it. So the point of sale provider led you to believe that you cannot switch your credit card processing and that it was tied in with this point of sale system, which is thousands of dollars. Is that right? They say, yeah, that's right. I say, okay. Based on that information, Bob, you're a smart, savvy business person. Let me ask you a question. Do you think that based on that, the fact that you're locked in and you can't switch, do you think that your point of sale provider gave you a really competitive rate? And it's amazing to watch the wheels turn inside that business owner's mind, and they go, no, I'm probably not getting a good rate. They like realize it. And if they don't, you can help them, okay. And they say, well, yeah, I think I'm getting a good rate. No, you don't understand my question. What I'm saying is, Bob, if you're locked in and this company knows you can't switch, do they have any incentive to give you a competitive rate? So you got to get them to recognize the problem first. Okay, next. You've already normalized the situation by saying you've dealt with it before. You've already explained the problem. Say, okay, now Bob, here's the harsh reality. Okay, I don't know if I can switch you or not. I really don't. But I'd like to find out if I can, and I'd like to also find out if I can save you some money by giving you a competitive rate that, like you just said, your current provider is probably not giving you. So let's do 2 things. Number one, let me get the name of the software that you're using and the number for technical support for the point of sale company that you have. I'm just going to do a little investigative work, and they're not going to know it's anything to do with you. I'm just going to call in and just talk to them and find out what gateway they're using and see if I can switch you over. Secondly, how about I take a look at your processing statement? I'm going to come back with a free cost analysis and show you if I can save you some money. Again, I'm not saying for sure I can. I'm just saying that obviously they don't have a lot of incentive to give you a competitive rate, whereas I do. So how about I come back and just give you a free cost analysis, and also I'll do some checking before that and see if I can switch you and what costs would be involved. Is that fair enough? And so that's how I handle that. When do you bring up PCI fees? I bring them up at the very end of the going through the pricing on the contract form. When I'm going through the pricing at the end of it, I say, now one other thing we have, we do have a PCI compliance. I'm sure you've heard of PCI compliance. PCI compliance is basically like car insurance. If you don't have car insurance and you never get in a wreck or you never get stopped by the police, it's not going to be a problem, is it? And they're going to say no. But if you get in a wreck and somebody gets injured and you don't have car insurance, you're going to be in trouble, aren't you? Yes. Well, PCI compliance is the same way. It does cost $79 a year. You pay it once a year, and we try to help you be compliant because if nothing ever happens, then you're fine. But understand that if somebody were to come in and steal credit card information from your business because you were not following PCI compliance guidelines, understand that your business could be sued by Visa and MasterCard. It could be fined $10,000 per incident. And this is a really, really big deal. I actually dealt with a customer 7 months ago. He wasn't with me, he was with another processor, but he switched to me, and he had a $100,000 fine from Visa and MasterCard for being non-compliant. $100,000 fine. Not a big business. It was a bar. It was a standalone bar in a hotel. $100,000 fine from Visa and MasterCard. Yeah. So we actually helped him get out of that. But yeah, so it's a big deal if you're not PCI compliant. What do you do when you're asking for a statement and they will have it ready on the day you come back, which is when you're coming back to give the cost analysis? Well, in that situation, I don't come back to give the cost analysis. I just come back to get the statement. So when I come back, I say, okay, hey, you got that statement for me? Great. Hey, you know what? Let's reschedule. I'm gonna go back to my office, get this thing all ready for you, and I'll come back in a couple days. Now, if they already seemed pretty interested about it, and they're like, yeah, I want to get a cost analysis, come back on Thursday. If they're actually interested, I'll bring my laptop and I'll do that quick cost analysis, the one that I have. EJ asks, I have an agent that I have been with for years, and I really like him or her. They're giving cost plus 5% at 25 cents. EJ, I don't understand that question, man. Can you, shoot me an email and I'll answer that question. Would it be okay to take the quote in on an iPad? You don't have to worry about leaving a copy of the quote then. Yeah, absolutely, man. I do that all the time, actually. What he's saying is, if you bring a paper cost analysis back, then they're going to keep it, you know what I mean, and look over it. But if you bring it back on an iPad, first of all, you look really cool, and secondly, they can't keep it. So absolutely, man, that's a great idea. Jonathan is giving us a tip here. He says, I usually quote them an annual fee of $99 for PCI, but explain what it's for. So Mark is asking, in the scenario I gave earlier where you give them free equipment and then you take their old terminal and swap them out, there are cases where then they're going to switch to another processor and then they want that terminal back. I'll be honest with you, Mark, I have hundreds of accounts. I've had that happen to me one time. So, all right, that's all the questions I got. Thanks everybody so much for joining us today, and I hope you have a wonderful day.